and welcome to Phoebe's Nest. Today I'll be making a wool sheep. I'm working with this variated cream wool, this pattern's worsted, this textured cotton yarn, and these two brown scrap wools. First, you'll take all three cream yarns, put them together, and tie a slip knot. Then you'll take your knitting needles. I'm using these US size 13 wooden Susan Bates needles, and slide that slip knot on, tie it up, and begin to cast on. You can use any cast on method you like. Once you've cast on 30 stitches, start your first row. I'm doing knit 2, purl 2 all the way across, repeated twice, and then I'm switching to purl 2, knit 2 to give it a nice variated pattern, kind of a chunky knit feeling. Once your knit section is approximately 6 inches long, you'll cast off and then you'll sew up the edges like so. I'm using a darning needle and that white wool worsted from Patton's. Be sure to leave one side open so that you can stuff it. Now get your stuffing out. I'm using quilt batting just rolled up inside of it so that if a child plays with it roughly, nothing will come out of the holes in the knit. Once you've put the stuffing inside, go ahead and sew up that open edge. Now it's time to make the head of the sheep. I cast on 20 stitches onto size 10 needles with a mix of wool ease and fisherman's wool. This time I'm working in stockinette stitch to keep the purl side really close together. That's the side I want facing out. You are also welcome to put the knit side out. Once you have a piece that looks like it's about the right size for the head, proportional to the body that you knitted and stuffed, you'll cast off. I did about 3.5 inches. Fold this piece in half, purl side out, by putting the long ends together. Then, starting in one corner, you'll sew all the way around. Don't forget not to close it up before you stuff it. I'm stuffing the head of mine with this wool that my husband and I collected in Downham, England last year. To form the ears and make the rectangle look a little more like a sheep head, you'll take the needle in the top 2 corners, whichever you choose, of the head. Then, in each corner separately, you'll weave the needle in and out across all the way around the ear. This is easier to show than to explain. Once you're done with the first ear, tie the yarn off, tuck the ends inside, and repeat on the other side. Using my white worsted wool, I'm going to sew all the way around the head through the body to make sure it's attached securely. Now, using these size 8 double-pointed needles, I'm going to work with just my wool ease yarn and do a 5-stitch I-cord that's about 1.5 inches long, maybe 2 inches long for each leg. So we'll do 4 of these just to repeat the process. Once you've finished all 4 legs, sew them onto the body by going all the way around each leg and tucking in the ends. For the tail, I did the same thing, but I only used a 3-stitch I-cord in the wool ease. It's the next day and I'm ready to sew on the button eyes. I just picked out 2 white buttons and I'm using black thread to be pupils for the sheep. So yeah, just stitching that on like I would any button. On a whim, I tied a tiny bell that I had sitting in my sewing kit onto a piece of scrap yarn, tied it around his neck. Obviously, I would not put this on the sheep if I were giving this to a very small child, but I don't have any of those around currently, so it's totally safe. And yeah, enjoy some looks at the finished project. Let me know if you make it in the comments.